This is a Jmix exclusive.
Yeah, cool, man. Cool. What up, Pharrell, Kirkland? Hello. By the way, is Terrell Foster jumping online? Is he around? Do you see him on there? If not, somebody get a hold of him. Tell him to jump online.
I'll shoot him a text real quick.
Yeah. Okay. So, A Wheaton, dude, who are you? Who are you talking to? We're not really sure. Anyway, yeah, I mean, it's been. Oh, wait a minute, hold on. You know what? I just screwed my audio up again. All right, sorry about that. All right, so now we're not gonna mess around with that anymore. Okay. So yeah, it's been a very interesting week, for sure. A lot of stuff that's been going on, and you know, the worst part is a whole lot of bad information. Let's just put it that way. And I'm not really sure what to do about it. You know, this is the problem we've got. But what's amusing to me even more is that, you know, recently videos have been put out where it's kind of like, why are we covering this ground all over again? And maybe it's important that people think that they're coming up with something new. But I mean, I just saw a video about Trayvon Lane and how what an epiphany that Trayvon Lane was the first person that said Orlando Anderson's name. You know, I'm not sure how many people watched those videos, but, you know, at the end of the day, anybody who's watched Tupac assassination, and you can put that screen up there, because I was sitting there looking at it, I'm like, guys, all you got to do, this information came out 10 years ago about Trayvon Lane being the first person to identify Orlando Anderson. Okay, so I'm not really sure if this is somebody's way to re-educate the public or that, but you know, it's sad to me that people that work with me or working on projects with me or working in that they have to keep bringing things up that were actually in the movies 10 years ago and make them like they're new. If you really want to put something out, just show the clip from the movie. You know, this is not, you know, this isn't revelation information. This is, you know, Tim Brennan, we even put the police report out there where he said he was the first one, and we talk about it in the movie. So it's just, it's amazing to me that, you know, I guess, you know, we always say the old is forever new, but, you know, hey, you know, especially since these are people that claim to be on the same side of the fence as me, instead of acting like you're coming up with some breaking news or some revelation about something, let's at least, you know, let's give credit where credit is due. This information came out 10 years ago. So let's just point that out there. It's just a little disturbing to me because it's bad enough to deal with bad information as it is. But now we got people running around acting like the information that they've come up with is new, some groundbreaking revelation that's never been heard from before. So it's just, I don't know. It's just kind of weird. I mean, you know, here's the news flash. Water, wet. Okay, that's the other new information that'll come out in the next video, I'm sure, that water is actually wet. Other than that, you know, it's been a slow Reggie Wright week. Let's talk about that for a minute, Jesse. You wanna talk about Reggie Wright for a minute, or did you have some other conversation you'd like to talk about?
No, we can go on Reggie Wright. You'd be more aware of any news coming to Reggie Wright. From me, the last I heard is Wright Sr. appeared in a courtroom in California and had his lawyer appear in Memphis, is what I'm told, and that is being created into some kind of conspiracy that elderly person didn't show up to Memphis.
Okay. It says turn RJ's volume up. Is RJ not talking loud enough, maybe? Hold on, I don't know.
No, RJ, you're fine.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure, that's all. All right, so check this out, guys.
313 in the house.
313 in the house. Greetings. All right, so check this out, guys. Whenever you have a courtroom hearing, it's a federal case, whenever you have any kind of court hearing, it is not uncommon. In fact, it's actually more common than it's not for a defendant or an attorney, and this works in civil cases as well as criminal cases, to make an appearance over the phone, especially if it's an out-of-state matter. I had a federal lawsuit that I was working where I was a complainant on a copyright suit, and we were out in Kentucky. The defendants were here in California, and many, many times we would all get on a conference call with the judge, and we would have and make our appearances by phone. So first off, that's not unusual. In fact, it's pretty darn common, because what's the point? If it's going to be a 3-minute conversation, what's the point of screwing up everybody's day, including the court or the judge, and having everybody come down to the courthouse and make a big scene about it for a 3-minute conversation? It doesn't make any sense. It's a waste of taxpayer money. It's a waste of court time. So that's not unusual. The second thing about it is that, yes, Reggie Wright Sr. is wearing an ankle bracelet like Reggie Wright Jr. is wearing an ankle bracelet. And Reggie Wright Sr. did make a telephonic appearance, and that's probably because of his age. His attorney suggested that it would be difficult to keep trotting back and forth between Tennessee and California, especially for a person in their 70s. And, you know, we could say, oh, that's not really that old. I mean, my grandmother's 83, but, you know, it's not really that old, except for when you're talking about, you know, there are people right now kicking off. I mean, a number of celebrities just died in the last couple of weeks, and they're in their mid-70s. So, you know, it's kind of like once you get past those 70s ages, anything can happen. So an argument could be made very easily that because of somebody's age, it's important for them just to appear by phone. So if there's no reason for him to stand in front of the judge, he won't stand in front of the judge. Now, Reggie Wright Jr. is a different matter altogether. He's supposed to appear on the 30th of August in court and stand for his arraignment. Now, will he appear by phone? He might. Again, it's a courtesy that they can allow a defendant, you know, and again, because the ankle monitoring is part of the process, we don't know just that you know, it's not more of a pain for the court and for the marshal's office to get a guy that's got an ankle bracelet, take him to Tennessee, put him on a new ankle bracelet, and track him in Tennessee, then turn around and put him on a different ankle bracelet back in California, because maybe those two areas don't use the same kind of monitoring technology. So, you know, you just look at something simple like that, and it becomes kind of a painful process to move people back and forth. Okay. The other thing, too, that we're talking about here is we're talking about what they're called soft crimes. Soft crimes are white-collar crimes, they're embezzlement, forgery, they're nonviolent crimes. So and yes, you can say, well, drugs lead to violence. Okay, yeah, I get that. But in terms of what these people are being charged with, they're being charged with what are called soft crimes. They're not being charged with violent crimes.
They're not a danger to society. They're not an imminent danger to society.
They're not a physical threat to society. And so because of that, they don't necessarily have to stand trial, and they get afforded things like telephonic conferences and appearances and all that. So again, if it was a domestic violence situation or a violent crime or assault with a deadly weapon or some other charge that was involved with it, somebody got hurt, the circumstances of the courtroom hearings changed quite a bit. So there's that, and I want to put that out there because there's been some confusion over that. That's not a conspiracy theory. It happens all the time. And by the way, these allegations are coming from people who've never stood a day in court in their life. Okay, you know, it's people that understand the court process because they've been in court. They've been in federal court. They've had federal lawsuits. They've defended federal lawsuits. They've been sued. You understand it. You go to court and you litigate. And once you understand how it works, then you can speak about it authoritatively. What gets under my skin are people that have absolutely no experience in it at all trying to speak authoritatively on it or raising questions about it, when it's pretty easy just to call somebody who knows what they're talking about, ask them the question, and you get a very simple answer. Yeah, that's not unusual. So, you know, again, is it better to just raise a bunch of stirring the pot kind of questions, or can you just call somebody who knows what the hell they're talking about, ask them the question, and get the answer? There's nothing unusual about Reggie Wright Sr. appearing by telephone in court. There's nothing unusual about it at all. The second thing I've heard that bothers me a little bit, and this is, like I said, we try to do rumor control here. This is what Sunday shows are about, right, Jesse? Rumor control.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you get it fact, you get it straight from the horse's mouth.
I tell you real quick before you go on, RJ. I am reading your questions, guys. William Lassane interview is possible. We know the same people, but we're gonna take your questions here in a minute. We got Ralph from 313 Live Show in the audience. Please go check out 313 Live Show. Subscribe, watch his shit. He says a lot of good shit. He's one of my favorite
And he doesn't
channels.
waver. And he doesn't waver, guys. The one thing about it is he's not telling you one thing. He's not telling you he supports us one day and then turns around and starts saying that Puffy Combs had something to do with it the next day. Okay, so just putting it out there for you. You know, this guy, I've never seen this guy, cross any kind of credibility threshold with me. So in terms of the show, I think, he does a great job, and I do support what he does. I support the work he does. But again, this is Rumor Central. This is where we get rid of rumors, and fans should be able to come. And if you have friends and you have people that have questions about stuff, this is where we answer those questions. So the second thing that bothers me is we talked about the thing where people are going around saying, oh, it's such a big thing, it's a conspiracy that Reggie Wright Sr. is appearing by phone. No, it's not. Number one. The second thing that is that suddenly now it's a conspiracy, it's a mystery, it's some strange thing that Reggie Wright Sr. doesn't have any future appearances in court. No, that's not a conspiracy. That is not an unusual thing. And again, here we go again, making a big deal about nothing. When cases are prosecuted in criminal and in civil court, generally speaking, the way it works is you have a complaint. Complaint is filed. Then the defendants have a certain amount of time to answer that complaint, either criminally with an arraignment and a plea or an initial appearance, or in civil cases they file an answer to the complaint. After the answer is filed, whether it be criminal or civil, it works the exact same way. Then there's a period of what's called discovery, which means that both sides are able to reveal to the other side, the one being accused or the one being complained on, they have the ability to examine information, to look at what the prosecutors in this particular case, what they have. They could look at videotape, they could look at that. And in this case, they assigned a special person, because there are 19 defendants in this case. They hired just a person called the discovery coordinator, who's going to be responsible for getting all this information out to everybody. So when you look at what needs to happen next, is that the next thing is these guys have been accused of something. They don't know what the feds have. They don't know what information the feds have. And this is going to be the first time for the defendants and their attorneys, Reggie Sr., Jr., and the other 17 people, for their attorneys all to see what the prosecutors have. And it's based on the strength of that and what they see and the defendant's evaluation of that evidence that the next hearing is scheduled. It's calendared. It's when somebody is ready to make a movement. The prosecution will request a trial, but they can't even request a trial date right now because nobody's even seen the discovery information. They can't set a trial date. Now, they could conceivably make up a trial date and they could set it for a year from now, 2 years from now, whatever the case might be. But in a lot of cases, it's just not practical to do that. So there's no future dates or hearings that are set. They will be calendared and they can be on calendared, and a hearing date is set literally by motion. So the prosecutor's office, the federal prosecutors can walk in and say, okay, we want a hearing on this evidence. We want a hearing on this discovery. What's admissible? What's not admissible? There's just so much stuff that has to happen. But again, everybody has to get all the information before anybody can make any motions on anything. And the next thing I would expect to see is that there are going to be several motions from the defendants once they get the photographs or videotape or documents that the federal government has on them, that the Reggies are going to basically be making motions with the court to have evidence suppressed, that they'll have information thrown out, that they'll look for reasons to suppress the evidence, or that witnesses are not credible, or get the names of witnesses. All of this stuff has to go on, and this could take several months to get done. So no one is going to, I guess the question I would ask anybody who says, well, there's nothing scheduled for Reggie Wright Sr., that's terrible. What would you expect to see scheduled at this point? Okay, Suge Knight's been in jail for 2.5 years and there's no trial.
Well,
so
here's another thing too. They're not in custody. They would only be rushing this trial if they were in custody.
Unless they're Suge Knight, and that's 2.5 years. Nobody's rushing anything.
And that's the point, is they're out on bail and they want to enjoy the benefits of being out on bail for a very long time. So I don't think you're going to see much fight from either one of the Wrights on having a date scheduled quickly. So
And again, there's nothing to talk about right at this moment. The complaint has been filed. The discovery has to go out to the defendants because they deserve that. They're entitled to that by law. And no one is going to set a date that they're going to have to vacate or move later on or continue later on, because there has to be a time when these people get the information. Now, I'm sure probably 120 days from now, maybe just probably about that time, you look back again, one of the prosecutors will then say, okay, everybody's had enough time to look at the information. We're going to set a hearing 60 days out, or we're going to set a hearing 30 days out. We're going to set a hearing for any motions that people might have, or a status conference. Even the judge might request a status conference after 90 days. But again, here we go again. No mystery, nothing unusual that a court date hasn't been set for Reggie Sr. Because the other thing too about it is that they're not going to set any court dates for Reggie Sr. until they know what everybody else in the case is doing. Okay, there's a good chance that some people lower on the totem pole, some of these other 17 defendants might give up some additional information on Reggie, either one of the Reggies, that might be part of their plea bargain. So they're not going to set any date for anything because they don't know what they're doing with the case yet. They know they have a complaint. They know they've been indicted. They know they have more charges. But you might find that some of these other defendants in their plea bargains might become witnesses later. And again, they have the right to confront witnesses. So this could push off and be continued. So again, no conspiracy, no nothing unusual about this. This is pretty much normally the way it goes in these kinds of cases.
And this is just me. This is just my opinion. In my opinion, this is the ultimate rat race. I see a bunch of rats scrambling for a piece of cheese, and I've seen cases like this here locally in Illinois where multi-tiered drug dealing gangs are put on trial. Actually, there's a local murder in the paper where they're doing the same thing. Multiple people charged with the same crimes, and it is a snitch fest once it hits the courtroom. Now, this is only me speculating, but I'm sure that there is being time, just like RJ said, I'm just trying to condense it a bit for the prosecutors I'm sure they're talking to a lot of people. RJ, if you didn't mind, I want to address William Lassane. I've seen comments about William Lassane and his comments about the movie. And this is what I have to say about that. If you watch the video where William Lassane is being interviewed, I think it's outside the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or right around that time, he is asked about the new revelations in Battle for Compton about Sharifa Knight and Reggie Wright Jr. setting up Suge. He goes on to give the answer that someone would have asked him, did Suge Knight do it? Because if you listen to his answer, he starts to tell, well, I don't see why Suge Knight would sit in the car. So William Lassane, when he was asked that question, I don't think he understood the question as it was being presented to him. He gave the answer that if someone had asked him, did Suge Knight do it? So that's how I feel about William Lassane. I have a mutual connection with him. We don't agree on everything, but I'm going to try to get him on the program shortly. RJ, did you see that video, RJ?
I have not seen the video. I can tell you that, William Lassane goes back and forth. One time he says one thing and he's on Greg Kading's corner. Another time he's now saying, well, Orlando Anderson had nothing to do with it. The guy, he kind of goes back and forth. So, I'm not really sure. Maybe somebody can chime in and tell me what's the significance of what he thinks or believes. What is other than the fact he's got an opinion like everybody else does. I mean, unless he was there physically and he was a witness to the crime, or he was peripheral or had knowledge about what happened at the crime, then he's no different than the man on the moon. Just because he's related to Tupac, he's got an opinion. Okay, that's great. But whether or not he co-signs one theory or another really doesn't make any difference, because it's just an opinion. Okay, it's really just an opinion about a guy who's changed his opinion, so he can change his opinion back. So again, I haven't seen the video, but I have seen other videos with him, and And to be honest with you, it's just like asking, what does Mo Prame feel about it, or what does person X feel about it? What does Layla Steinberg think about it? What does Tracy Robinson think about it? The only thing that really matters is what the evidence points to, because everybody's got different opinions.
And Luke, I know that he did a new interview, but I'm addressing the interview that's been brought to my lap several times, which is he disavowed it during the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony. But it was clear that when he answered that question, and I haven't seen the new interview, but it was clear when he answered that question that he didn't know the question that was being asked of him. That's my only point. So I will watch his new interview, but I'm one of those people, because I disagree with William Lassane on so much, I'm going to take what he says with a grain of salt. He was in Atlanta when Tupac was shot. He was detached from the family, and I'm not taking any jabs at him. That's just simple truth.
This is Jeff Kean. Welcome to the show. I'm reading your comment. Civil trials are one thing, but interstate drug thing is another. There's no reason why he shouldn't have had to appear in court. Well, now you're talking semantics. Shouldn't have had to appear. Yeah, I mean, would we like to have seen him drugged by the scruff of his neck in and thrown in front of the judge? Yeah, of course we would have loved to. Should and shouldn't. That's not the practical reality of the situation. In interstate federal cases, they have to give every convenience and every benefit of the doubt to the person being accused. We don't like it. Should they? Yeah, I don't disagree with you. They should have. But this is the way our legal system works. These people are people that, they got to be given every latitude in the world, because anything shy of that might be seen as prejudicial. It might be seen as bias. It might be seen as putting one guy out and making him an example, anything that. And of course, these defense attorneys love to use any kind of move like that. Well, you were harder on my client because these other people didn't get drug in there. You're harder on my client. Now you got something about it. Those are all things that can be used to turn a jury. So they, out of an abundance of caution, Jeff, generally speaking, they do everything they can to accommodate the defendant in this case, and give him no reason to make a claim that might stick with an OJ type of jury. Okay?
And plus,
that's really what we're doing.
Plus, people are forgetting that Reggie Wright Sr. is a former cop. I'm sure his record is pretty clean, and he's not posing a direct threat to people's safety. And
right.
We have to keep in mind that as much as we want to deny or believe that the justice system is equal and balanced and fair, trust me, former police get kid glove treatment. I've seen in most cases. Maybe not all the time, maybe not in shootings, but we have to keep in mind that this is an elderly man with what I would assume to be a pretty clean record. So this is not El Chapo by any means.
It's El Chappie.
El Chappie?
El Reggie. El Rego. That would actually be good if it would stick. El Rego.
Shout out again to 313. Go check out his live show. It's dope. Huge fan of him. RJ wanted him on here. Did you want to talk to 313 about something, RJ?
No, just giving a big shout out. That's all. I know he likes to be part of the conversation, so I was going to wake him up from his nap. I said, wake up, Terrell, and join the show, man, because it's always keeping it real on this show, and we like to have everybody the same thing. So let's see here. First time
Mike,
on a drug.
Listen, Mike is a longtime moderator. He comes on here, gives us his free time. He wants you to address this guy that he banned that said that William, I'm assuming it's William Lassane, would know more about it than anybody else. Is that what you wanted, Mike? I think he wants you to address that guy.
There's a message that was deleted. What was the message? What, that he said that William Lassane might know more? And by the way,
he said that you're full of shit, that William Lassane knows what the fuck he's talking about. That's what he said.
Oh, really? Okay, well then he backs Greg Kading's theory, so I guess he must know what he's talking about, clearly. And then he changes his mind later, so one way or another, right? He knows what he's talking about. That's why he's changed his story twice. Okay? So, the guy can't make up his mind to save his life in terms of what he believes, but that's okay. That's not a slight on William Lassane. People have the right to change their minds. It's okay. because it's not fact driven. It's his opinion. He's allowed to change his mind about what he believes. However, to say he knows what the fuck he's talking about, that's a stretch because he wasn't there. So he's got an opinion like everybody else, and he learns things and hears things from this person or that person. But how could he have his shit together and change his story? The two aren't compatible. The two aren't congruent.
And I'm gonna talk about the elephant in the room. He was not in the best mind frame in 1996. Okay, I don't want to insult the guy, but I think everybody knows the story about the gun and why Tupac needed to go back to Georgia. And I'm not judging him, but in 96, from what's pretty much public knowledge, he was battling his own demons. So I feel that, like RJ saying, that anything that he is speaking on is coming from word on the street, what he's hearing after the fact. To Josh asks, why did Russell Poole clear Liga? Liga seems like a suspect and accomplice in both murders, Tupac and Biggie. I want to say that Liga didn't come out and start saying the things that he did, like he had seen Gaines before and met him before, until after the investigation. Did you have anything to add to that, RJ?
Oh yeah, Russ was pissed about that. Russ and I talked about that a couple of times. Russ was pissed about that tape that came out because that tape of Frank Liga's when he was talking to the training class came out while Russell was still alive, and Russell was pissed about that because Russell had made it very clear to me, first-hand knowledge. I was told by Russell Poole that he was upset about the Frank Liga tape because Frank Liga had never told him that he actually had seen Kevin Gaines before and that he knew Kevin Gaines was. Now, again, years ago, many years ago, maybe Frank Liga learned later on that that's what Kevin Gaines was, and maybe he may not have known it at the time. I don't know. But Russ never felt like Frank Liga was being 100% straight with him, and Russ was the first one to admit that he was under a ton of pressure from the LAPD to clear Frank Liga, and it was almost over his head that if he didn't do it, somebody else was going to do it for him. So ultimately, it's kind of the good old boys club. If there was nothing to pin Frank Liga down with hard evidence, they're going to let him go, and they told Russ the same thing, and that's what Russ did. That's what's going on with that. So Jamie Imler, or Jaime, maybe I'm Jaime Imler. Just correct me if I'm wrong on that. Welcome to the show. You say I could be wrong, but I swear I haven't heard shit from Mopreme lately ever since he said Orlando was a pawn on Vlad TV. Yes, that's correct. Mopreme is working on the A&E television show. He's an executive producer on an A&E television show that is in editing right now. It's a multi-part production. He will be interviewed for that A&E show, and he will have, I'm sure, much to say in that show. But that's why he's not doing a lot of interviews right now, because he's saving up his interviews and saving up their their value, if you want to call them that, for that television show. So you'll see him on that A&E show when it comes out. Let's see what here. All right.
Very touching, Katie. Thank you. On behalf of RJ.
I'm probably not there yet.
She says, memory eternal for your friend RJ. Rest in peace.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, peace to you. Thank you for that. Frank and Russ are both very good friends of mine, and again, Russ and I had a relationship before other people even knew who Russell Poole was. And, there's a lot of people trying to grandstand and try to trot Russ Poole's name out to hype their own agendas. But at the end of the day, I respected Russ very much. And Russ was my hero. And I think that in time, especially when Labyrinth comes out, there's going to be some information about Russ Poole that's going to come out that may surprise some people, may not surprise people. But at that time, we'll talk a little bit more about the Russell Poole that I really knew and the circumstances around, the end of his life and the last chapter of his life, if you will.
Russell stayed with you for a while, though, RJ. That's correct.
Yeah, Russ stayed at my house. Yeah, Russ stayed at my house. Yeah, absolutely. There was a period of time where there was a transition. Russ was going through a transition between places to stay, and the timing of it didn't work out really well. and the wheels fell off on a couple of things. And, you know, I basically volunteered, hey, Russ, I've got a guest room. If you want to come in there, and he brought his wife in there as well, you know, you want to come and stay for a while, you can stay for a while. You know, we had dinner together. You know, our refrigerator was split in half. Russell and his wife had half the refrigerator. My family had the other half of the refrigerator. And we we're in each other's hair all day. The thing about it was that and I still kick myself because here he was living with me, and I didn't turn the video camera on and get an interview with him. You'd think that of all the times I regretted not doing that with Frank, for all the times I saw Frank, I would have gotten that right with Russ and said, hey. But the nice thing about it was that it gave us an amazing amount of one-on-one time, because Russell and I would just go up to my office upstairs and kind of sequester ourselves away, and we plow through all these documents that he had. We sat down literally on the floor of my office, and we had several piles, and we go through them and say, what's this? Russell would go, well, I don't know, this is but there's nothing, there's a newspaper, and he'd put it over in a stack. Oh, what's this? Oh yeah, well that's this, and then we put it over another stack. That helped get Tupac 187 off the ground, and really helped frame up a lot of stuff that was happening with that. Yeah. So yeah, Russell and I, Russ lived with me at my house, and my wife helped him do some things, and when he was getting a new job at the time, there was a lot of stuff going on. A very transitional period of time. I'm glad for the time that we got to spend together. And, when you live with somebody daily, you get pretty close. So, it was a great time, and I was glad to do it, and I was glad to be a part of Russell's life.
That sums it up better than I can.
Okay, so
real quick, shout out to Jeff in Detroit. Listen, I live a couple hours from Detroit. Just the fact that you can exist in Detroit means that you've got cred in my book. Shout out to anybody living in Detroit right now.
Let's see here. Every time I hear Frank's voice, it feels like he's still here. You and me both. Okay, Kripke says, my problem with RJ is he wants to be the end-all, be-all. End-all, be-all of what, dude? Okay, at the end of the day, I'm a guy. Okay, now, I don't claim, and I never have claimed, that I have all the answers. In fact, I've admitted that I've been wrong about things publicly. I've been wrong about things. I put a video out and had some things in there, and I've admitted I've been wrong. That sounds, and forgive me for saying so, that sounds like that's coming from somebody that I actually know, because that person leveled that allegation at me directly. So let's just call it for what it is. Troll. Okay. You're speaking for somebody else. So let's not go there. Anybody that really knows me knows that I'm one of the most humble people when it comes to giving away information, helping people do their own things, do their own show. I give footage away freely to people to help them get their shows off the ground. Jesse can attribute for that. I mean, the people who really know me, that's the last thing that they think of me. And if somebody really believes that, just shows they don't know me at all. Period. That's it. I'm not trying to.
I've said it many times. This is the channel that RJ built.
I just, again, it just baffles me. But again, like I said, it's not. There are people that have beliefs about celebrities. There are people that have beliefs about people. They don't know who they are. They don't know them. They know what they see. They know what's on the public broadcast. They know about that. But again, like I said, the one thing I do try to do, though, Cuz, or whatever his name is, Kripke, is I try to be absolutely 100% sure about what it is I'm talking about. Now, if that makes me sound arrogant, or if I say that I've been in it 4 times as long as any of the Johnny-come-latelys, and almost 12 times as long as half these people that are making videos right now about it seem to think they know everything, okay, I've been doing this 12 times as long. That doesn't make me the be-all, end-all of anything. That just makes me confident about what I know and confident about the details and the facts that I'm putting out. So if your interpretation of that is that I'm trying to be the be-all, end-all of things, and you're not a troll and you're not a pundit of somebody else who might have that opinion, my apologies. But at the same time, you're still crack wrong. You know, like I said, the people that I deal with on a regular basis, the people that know me know that I'm very generous. They know that I'm very humble. They know that I don't look for myself first in things. And if there's an opportunity that I can push somebody up and do something for somebody to boost what they did, I mean, fuck, I even did it for Tanique. I mean, you know, I put Tanique out there. Tanique tore down his entire channel, took down all his videos, and I had to talk to him. I had to encourage him, and I've got the damn Facebook chats to prove it, that I encouraged him to put his channel back. He wasn't even put his channel back on the air. And I encouraged him to put his channel back on the air. I gave him props to give that. So, I mean, you know, so I don't buy it for a minute, this whole thing about being the be-all, end-all. You know, I don't have to defend myself. Anybody who knows me knows better. So we'll just leave it at that.
Kripke says, and yeah, we're going to have a troll show today. I'll address him. He says that Little Half Dead isn't powerful enough to get away with murder. Is Reggie Wright Jr.? Was any of Suge's homeboys? Was Heron? Was Neckbone? Was Buntree?
Well, Little Half Dead isn't powerful enough to get away with murder. That's why he has other people looking out for his interests. Okay? And powerful enough, you have to have somebody actually pursuing you to be accused of murder and to have somebody after you. I mean, nobody's interested in going after Little Half Dead. So to say that he's not powerful enough, you don't have to have any power if nobody's chasing you around. You just keep quiet. Do what he's doing. Shut the fuck up. Don't say anything. And that's it. That's all you got to do.
I think people would be real surprised. I encourage everybody, and this is in good spirits, but Google search how many murders are unsolved every single year. Just keep that in mind. Murders are unsolved every single year, and it's not always a criminal mastermind that gets away with it. It's all has to do with circumstance and events that happened.
So going up here, do you worry for your life because of your investigations at Set? Katie Room, thank you for coming to the show. Welcome. Answer the question, you know, I kind of cop Frank on this one. I say that fear and faith don't live in the same place. I don't fear for my life. Now, can I tell you that I slept a little bit better when I knew that Reggie Wright was on an ankle bracelet, or that Reggie Wright and his father are, you know, being indicted? Did I sleep a little better that night? Yeah, I think so. But, you know, it's a reality in the world that we live in when we do these kind of shows, that there are going to be risks involved, that there are people that are not great, honest people. Now, what I can tell you is that over the years, I've just come to believe, and I mean, we're not talking about, I mean, in reality, you know, Reggie Wright geographically lives very close to where I live. It's no secret. But
it's about 20 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah, about that. If anything were to happen to me, first off, and my wife, who's a West Point graduate, wouldn't shoot them first. If anything happened to me, there will certainly be a short list of people on that list. And again, that's the kind of heat that people don't want brought down. Okay, I don't have a lot of enemies. In fact, I really don't have any enemies. There are people that don't like what I do, and there's a short list of those people, very short. I sound like Trump when I say that. Very short list, very, very short. But but as far as Reggie goes, no, I'm not afraid of Reggie. I never have been afraid of Reggie. And again, you know, I'm just not afraid of him. So yeah, I don't fear for my life. You know, my wife is concerned for our children and our children's safety, and we take precautions to make sure of that. But again, you know, these are, I believe, and we said this in last week's show, I believe that people that got clipped, especially in the early days of the investigation, the early days of all that, those people that got clipped were people that were kind of in the background. They were, you know, not out in the spotlight. They weren't out in public. They weren't a regular person that, you know, went to a job 9 to 5 and was going to be missed or had people monitoring what he was doing. You know, these are people that, you know, kind of lived in the pockets of, you know, corner pockets of civilization. And so it's pretty easy to get rid of some of those people and not have it blow back on you. Okay. Now, that said, if I was in Compton and I lived in Compton and the Compton PD were in control of the situation up until 2000, and people are dying in 1998, 1999, and in 2000, and people are dying in Compton, and Compton police are in control of it. If I was living in Compton, I'd be scared to death. But, you know, that's not the case. It didn't happen. So that's pretty much I can say about that. Let's see what else we got.
Josh, I will address the YouTube censorship comment that you made. That it's funny. Josh asked, "Are you guys experiencing YouTube, Google censorship for sharing the truth? It's common for other quote red pill sites." It's tough. Have I had videos demonetized? Yes, I have. Have I seen them be demonetized en masse? I have not. Earnings have fallen 80%. It's more about the truth. It's not about the earnings. But have I seen a negative impact since the whole YouTube ad apocalypse? Yes. So it's hard to say if they're targeting this channel, and I wouldn't make some baseless assumption because I think I got it better off than other channels. But yes, there has been the same problems that major channels have had in my own personal experience. Yes.
Hold on a second. Hang on. Hold on a second.
All right. So I'll take a question. That's RJ dipping. So, who took away Fatal at the House of Blues? FBI.
See, now you
Santa
did
Monica.
it. That was Reggie at the door. See, you guys already did it, and he showed up. So
Knock,
sorry about
knock.
that. Take care of it.
So
Good.
listen, I want to address the gun, the House of Blues gun that's been brought up by other YouTubers. Listen, is it plausible? Anything's plausible. I've heard a lot of word on the street concerning that gun, but I don't have any concrete proof to say yes, that's the same gun. Is it a coincidence? It's a big coincidence. I don't believe Fatal ever did get that gun back, but that's speculation and rumor. In my opinion right now.
Okay. Well, I mean, you know, in as much as am I on? Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. In as much as I had anything to say or witness about it, I mean, you know, Frank Alexander said that that's what happened. Kevin Hackey said that that's what happened. They're firsthand witnesses. He gave it to Reggie Wright, gave the Fatal's gun to Reggie Wright. Frank watched, and we have video from Gobi where the whole thing was going down, where the gun was given up, you know, and was, you know, given. Frank was trying to calm Fatal down and calm Tupac down, actually, because he was pissed off at Fatal. That video exists. And, you know, and Kevin Hackey says that that was the gun, and that the gun was taken by the Santa Monica police and put in a drawer, and he was asked by Reggie to go and get the gun and get it back for Reggie. So, you know, I mean, to me, that's firsthand information. So, you know, it may be hearsay, but that sounds pretty credible to me. There was a question JM put out, why didn't any of the guards that were told to disarm not tell Suge that they were told to disarm, or the lawyer? Didn't Suge ask? You know, actually, go back and watch Battle for Compton again, because Frank answers that question directly. You know, that's the problem when they, especially when, because, and Frank, in the part of Battle of Compton, Frank's talking about it. Frank says that it was at the Luxor when he had his gun in his car, and he had to go get his gun, and they told, come on, let's get going. And he wasn't going to say to him, hey, let me go get my gun out of my car. He said, because the next question was going to be, well, why is your gun in your car? And he said, the next thing I would have to tell him is that Reggie told us not to carry any weapons. You know, in certain organizations, in certain places, especially Death Row Records, loyalty is a very sacrosanct thing. It is something that you do not throw people under the bus. And Frank and Michael Moore and everybody else weren't going to throw Reggie under the bus. They had their own opinions about Reggie, but they weren't going to throw Reggie, or Suge for that matter, under the bus. So if Reggie told them not to carry any weapons, again, Suge may or may not have known it. Maybe they thought Suge already knew that, because Suge certainly didn't ask it, and we know for a fact that Suge actually thought they did have their weapons on them. So there's no reason to tell Suge, hey, we're being told not to carry our weapons, because ultimately what you're going to be doing is ratting out Reggie, and that could have some pretty terminal consequences there. So I think that that's part of the reason why the guards weren't told there. Now, if you want my personal opinion about it, I think that was a major misstep of Frank's, and Frank and I have talked about that, and I've shared that with him, that I think that that's exactly what he should have done at that point. When they said, why don't you have your gun? Why is your gun in your car? The first thing he should have said was, I'm sorry, but I have to go get my gun. And he said, well, why don't you have your gun? The first thing he should have said was, Reggie told us not to carry any weapons. I was given that order not to carry any weapons. And in all fairness to Frank, most cops that have a full-time regular gig, sheriffs, cops that have it, and they're literally just moonlighting on the side picking up a paycheck. If Frank had been a regular cop and had not been worried about that being his full-time job, if it was just something he did on the side, most of those guys would have said, and I quote, hey, I'm going to go get my gun, or I'm not going to leave my gun, and if you don't like it, go fuck off, and that would have been the end of the conversation. Frank needed that job. It was a full-time gig for him. A lot of those guys, it was a full-time job for him. He liked his job. He liked Tupac. He liked the job he was doing. So, you know, I think that an experienced law enforcement officer probably would have handled the situation a lot differently, and that's why I think that, and in talking to several cops, that they said the same thing, that Frank's answer back about the going to get his weapon was to explain the situation very diplomatically and say, look, for whatever reason we were told this, or for whatever reason the order was given, I've got to go get my gun. If you don't like that, I cannot protect Tupac without a gun. And if you don't like it, go talk to Reggie about it. And I've got to go get my gun now, because clearly there's a disconnect between what we was told and what you think we should be doing right now, because I don't have my gun. So I really think that time at the Luxor was a critical, it was a crossroads. And the whole story could have been a lot different today if at that one moment there was a series of different choices made. So, and I don't fault Frank, but I just think that if you had to boil the entire night down to one instant where things could have been different forever, was when they were at the Luxor and Frank had the opportunity to tell them, stop, I have to go get my weapon. And for all the reasons that any rational person in the world would give, he didn't. And I think that had that been different, the entire night would have gone completely different.
Do you think one man with a firearm was enough to stop what was going to happen? You think it would have made a difference?
Well, I think it would have shaken up. I just in looking at the events, looking at that, it's a great question. I think that it would have shaken up the planning and the events of the night, because again, anytime you go into a major operation like this, and I think Michael called it the school play or whatever silly name it had, whenever you go into an operation like this and you're planning on setting up somebody to be killed and you got everything there has to be a certain amount of baseline assumptions that are given, and you deal with the exception, but the rule has to be there. So, for example, if you've got a sniper that's trying to take somebody out from a mile away, you've got a sniper rifle, and that's your plan, that's the way you're going to take somebody out. One of the assumptions you have to make is that the wind's not going to be very strong, because if the wind's strong, it's going to screw your operation up. And so you plan it for a day. If the weather conditions are right, you basically assume that weather condition is going to hold. If something changes in that, and that weather condition changes, that can shake up your whole plan, and it might even abort your plan. You may have to just terminate the move and reset it for another time because the conditions just aren't right. I think that if Frank would have actually said, wait, stop, I have to go get my gun. And if anybody looked at him sideways, or Shug said, well, why don't you have your gun on you? You should have your gun on you. Why don't you? Frank was the guy that Shug...
That's a good point.
Well, Frank was the guy that Shug said, y'all are hero now because he saved Snoop and all them out of the trailer. Okay? Shug liked Frank. Shug thought that Frank was a pretty smart guy, and he was a pretty tough guy because he saved all those people. So there wouldn't have been a reason. If Shug would have asked Frank, why don't you have your gun on you, it would not have been accusatory. It would have been more like, what the WTF moment. Why not? Because there would have been a little bit of panic there. And if Frank had just said, hey, I don't have my gun, I need to go get my gun, he'd be like, well, all day you haven't had your gun. Why haven't you had your gun? And if he had told him, Reggie told us not to have our guns, something may have been up at that moment. Can you imagine stopping everything and Suge stopping everything in his tracks and say, where the fuck is Reggie? Well, he's over at Club 662. I want to talk to Reggie about this. You get him on the goddamn phone and you find out why my guards and the guards guarding all these people don't have their guns, because he would start asking other people about that as well. So I think that from a Doppler effect standpoint, I think that the more information that Frank would have put out at that critical moment in time, forewarned is forearmed. And that may have caused some real anxiety and may have even aborted that plan for the evening, because now Suge, who was a target, we believe, has learned that his bodyguards who are supposed to be carrying weapons for some reason aren't. And that was before they went to his house, before they went to everything. So early enough in that evening, the whole climate and the whole controlled circumstance might have changed. So one man with a gun isn't really the issue. It's one man with information. That's what I believe.
That was a fantastic explanation. You hit it right on the mark. I think that you're absolutely right. Suge would have started asking questions because that's just who Suge was from everybody that I've talked to. Half Dead and Brenda's Got a Baby is brought up in the chat, and I know we've beat this dead horse to death, but I want to talk about another piece of old information that is becoming new information. Half Dead was not the only person to accuse Tupac of ripping off a song. Kill accused Tupac of ripping off Dear Mama. He had wrote a song called Mama Dear, and that was actually in your book 187, was it not, RJ?
Yeah, it was. Kill Kill was a rapper who said that Tupac ripped off Dear Mama. And again, here we go back with the whole thing about, does it matter? Okay, I mean, if you're a celebrity, you're going to be accused by dozens of people of having ripped off their music. Okay, so I don't understand what this big disconnect, if Little Half Dead says that Tupac ripped him off, or Kill Kill says that he ripped him off, or that the Man on the Moon says that Tupac ripped him off. Tupac, being a celebrity and being a successful recording artist, is going to go through the exact same thing that every other recording artist goes through, and that is a litany, a literal conga line of people saying, you ripped me off. Even Taylor Swift, even people like that still get that, even to this day. They get the whole you ripped me off accusation. Okay, and sometimes it's true. There was that country western band that was a kind of a flash in the pan. I guess they're still Lady Antebellum, I think is the name of the band. And they put out a song that blatantly ripped off a song from the Alan Parsons Project in the 80s called Eye in the Sky. Had the same chord structure, same chord progression, same everything. They just blatantly just knocked it off. And of course, what happened? Alan Parsons Project said, you ripped off our song. And they said, no, I didn't. And then they took them to court and they sued them and they won. They did. Okay. So, the fact that somebody is accusing somebody of ripping them off, welcome to showbiz. Okay. That happens all the time. Okay. So I'm not really sure why everybody's so stuck on the fact that Little Half Dead will run around saying that Tupac ripped them off. Number one, we all know demo stealing was happening, and we've always approached that and we've explained the hell out of that and his perception and all that. But let's take another way of looking at it and just say, welcome to fucking being a celebrity. People that make movies get told that the movie ripped off somebody else's screenplay, and they get ripped off. If you're a recording artist, you get told you got ripped off, you stole somebody's music. I mean, it's just part of the baggage of being there.
And, I want to say this whole Little Half Dead thing to me has always been a red herring. The reason that I believe that so many people are focused on that opening line of the letter is because you got to keep in mind the only reason that this is being publicly discussed was because it was leaked. It was leaked from the LAPD or the LA County Sheriffs. This was
LAPD.
The LAPD. This was brought to them as a piece of evidence, as a piece of new evidence, and it was leaked. And when it was leaked, it was called the half-dead theory. So I think that a lot of this question is coming from the narrative that they intended to do with the leak of the document.
Right.
They didn't
By
just
the way,
put out the document.
hold that thought. Shout out to Patty Pacifico. I finally got around to it. It's been a while back, but thank you, Patty. West Point, we know who wears the pants in RJ's family. Yes, my wife wears the pants in my family. Yes, and if I'm out of line, she will shoot me. And Jesse knows that. Jesse's met my wife.
I have no comment. I cannot confirm or deny that.
Right. That's right. Thanks, Patty. So go ahead, Jesse. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
No, I just feel that people are not looking at why they even are framing something a certain way. I believe that was the reason that piece of evidence was leaked from someone that was in a meeting with. There was only a few cops there, and Darren Dupree, being Greg Kading's partner, was one of those cops. And that letter is leaked out, and it's leaked with an intent, and it served its intent because it has you focusing on one part of the letter and nothing else.
Right, and they sent that information to a cat by the name of Anthony Battaglia, who's a teacher in Hamtramck, Michigan, and 313's area code and his location there, and he put it out on the internet under his Anton Beatty alias. And, he claims to this day not to know anything more. He says he got some envelope in the mail anonymously. But, okay, so you're just going to put out a YouTube video with anonymous stuff in it. Okay, I'm calling BS on that.
Let me wrap that up just real quick.
Hang on, Ray.
And
shout out.
With today's president and everything that's going on and all the leaks that you're seeing, ask yourselves, why do people leak things? They leak things to damage whoever they're trying to hurt with the leak. Leaks are to damage. That's what you see all the
help.
And if you don't see the leak for being a damage scenario, I'm just trying to let you guys know that I've never seen a leak other than Edward Snowden come out to be for the benefit of anybody.
But it was still to damage.
Yeah, and it was still to damage. It was to damage,
damage
the NSA.
People that he didn't agree with, the NSA. He didn't agree with them, so he countered it by leaking it out there. It was to damage. Ray Will, do you guys discuss Yasmin Fula's Twitter dissertation live? She completely demolished the Outlaws. Was that last week's show? Actually, did we talk about this? I don't think we really talked about it much.
No, we didn't talk about it. I really haven't talked about it.
Okay, so we'll talk about it. We'll talk about that in a little bit. JM, back. RJ, do the lawsuits you claim have been placed have any weight? What lawsuits are you talking about? Are you talking about lawsuits that I failed? Lawsuits that I've filed, or lawsuits that have been filed against me? I've been sued one time. The case was thrown out. It had nothing to do with the Tupac movies at all. I've sued other people twice, about 3 times, regarding the movies and the Tupac material. But I've also sued federal copyright lawsuit, federal copyright infringement lawsuits in the courts in the Midwest over copyrights and patents. I've been a complainant in those, and so I've had occasion to be part of that. So those are the lawsuits that I've been involved with. Yes, I've been known to be litigious in my lifetime, but I myself have only been sued one time, and it was dismissed.
I think this is a question you'd like to answer. Brendan Lynch asks, does Kading have some kind of leverage over you, RJ? Why was he able to do Facing Suge Knight show, and could you have done it, or were you even approached?
Well, I wasn't approached. The Greg Kading, we did a show before Facing Suge Knight came out. We did a show. Michael was on the show as well, and it was what was the name of that show? It was
it the AJ Benza one?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was the AJ Benza show. It was, but both we and Greg Kading were on the show at the same time, and the editors on the show, the company that did the production, and that's not the channel, but the company actually did the production itself, they believed what we had to say more than what Greg Kading had to say. And because of that, Greg Kading got maybe 10 minutes of the show, an hour-long show. Michael and I got about a half hour of the show. And it really leaned heavily, and AJ Benza leaned heavily on agreeing with our theories. And of course, they're a person like Greg Kading's not going to take that for a minute. So whenever a television show or producers of a show, if they don't already have an agenda for what they're going to do with the show or what they personally believe is the agenda for the show, they're going to stock it and staff it with people that back that agenda. But if they don't have any agenda for the show, Greg Kading tells people, hey, if you're going to interview RJ Bond, I won't do your show. Okay? I won't be part of the show.
I can verify this.
Yes. And so, and that's because, you know, he kind of got his ass beat a little bit on that one show in terms of, being up against us, and he feels he's too good for us and that we're a bunch of nut jobs and he shouldn't dirty his plate with us in our involvement. But, you know, and that's certainly his right to do that. But again, like I said, that's why he makes it a condition to this. So when Facing Suge Knight came out, there's only one of two possibilities that existed because, again, they interviewed Sharita, they interviewed Reggie, they interviewed Greg. Look at the people that they interviewed. And, you know, so if Facing Suge Knight came out, if there wasn't an agenda already, which was anti-Suge Knight, in which we clearly aren't, in our description of Suge Knight as a victim, they don't want, in that documentary, they did not want to portray Suge Knight as a victim. They wanted to portray Suge Knight as an aggressor, Suge Knight as a bully, Suge Knight as a bad guy, a guy who deserves whatever is coming to him. That's the agenda.
Because it sells. Nobody wants to hear about the soft side of Suge. Nobody wants to hear the truth about Suge Knight. They'd rather have the big bad wolf. It sells.
Well, right. Yes, of course. They put a big black hat on him. So again, but that's the agenda of the show. And if that wasn't the agenda of the show, either they reached out to Greg Kading first and they said, Greg Kading, will you interview the show? And he says, as long as you don't interview RJ Bond or Michael Carlin, then yes, I'll do the show. And he agreed to do the show and probably invited Reggie and Sharita to come along with him as well. And that way the official narrative on their side of the fence gets advanced more. So that's what I think happened with that show. You know, there are people that have had shows that they've produced where they did not tell Greg Kading that I was being interviewed for the show. My interview may or may not ever make the air, but I do know that that there will be other shows that will have both Mr. Kading and myself on the show in some way, shape, or another. Let's see here. Matt Strickland, good question. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jess. You want to finish that thought?
I just wanted to address the Half Dead thing. I did an interview with Controversy Radio. They've been working very hard on it, and I'm going to let that come out before I start talking about Reno and Half Dead. I'm sorry, guys. I just don't want to spoil their product. They worked very hard on it, and that's Controversy Radio. Jesse over there is a stand-up dude.
Matthew Strickland, great question. Is it true that Omar Bradley is a blood per what Daz said? Daz is 100% correct. Omar Bradley is a blood. Omar Bradley affiliates with the Bloods. When Michael and I went on a tour of Compton, some of which you saw in Battle for Compton, Omar Bradley showed you the Blood neighborhoods and said that they were in great shape, showed you the Crip neighborhoods and took you to the worst parts of them so you could see the bad neighborhoods that the Crips were in there. You know, you could see there was a difference in the neighborhoods, but again, they're probably nice Crips neighborhoods too. But Omar Bradley is definitely associated with the Bloods. He made no bones about it in the interview, and perhaps one day I can put out the unreleased Omar Bradley drive around interview where he's talking about the history of the Bloods and the Crips in Compton.
It's a good damn interview. It's a good damn.
Yeah, it's a good one. So I think that you know, maybe at one point we might be able to put that out. There's a little bit of legality involved with that, but we'll address that when the time comes. But yes, he is 100% true about that. Let's see here. Oops. Let's go here. Hold on.
Hey, sometime do you want to address what I played, which is the Ray Love interview? Just if you need a talking point, I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Sure. While I'm catching up on comments.
The day of that interview, there's a couple answers and questions that seem a little curt. Was it a bad day? People were commenting during the interview. Was it a bad day filming?
Why would they have an impression that it was a bad day filming?
Because there was a lot of kind of jump cuts in between the segments. There was, and it seemed like Ray Love was almost repeating himself. Like you'd
No,
ask him a
actually,
question, and it kind of seemed like he would not
no.
answer the question.
There's jump cuts because that's actually the camera's turned off, the camera's turned back on again. There was a lot of times that Ray, I think, had allergies at that point, and so there were times where he needed to blow his nose, and there were times that he needed to stop for a minute, or we talk about something. And there were other times when he and Frank would just get on a rant and they would just start chatting it up. We'd shut the camera off because they'd start talking about bullshit for no apparent reason. It had absolutely nothing to do with the interview. And so we had that on there like that. The interview was actually, the Ray Love interview was actually shot at Frank's invitation to Ray, and Frank had never met Ray before, and they were very excited about meeting each other, and it was a great time. That was actually supposed to be shot for the Jimmy Dwight project, Static, which was the Jimmy Dwight's version of the Digital Underground movie that I was working with him on, and Frank was supposed to be involved with that movie as well. Jimmy didn't want Frank involved with the movie, even though Frank had brought Ray Love to the table, and once Ray Love found out that the project was for Jimmy Dwight, Ray Love said, "You can never use that interview for Jimmy Dwight. I will never allow it." And that was how that went. And that interview just kind of sat in the can. I honored Ray's wishes about it, and of course that interview has never really seen the light of day. But that was the circumstances of which it was shot, and the reason that it's a jump cut like that is simply because we would stop the camera, start the camera, stop the camera, start the camera, stop the camera, start it together, and put it out there. And the interview itself is a series of clips that were put together into one long narrative. So that's why you have the jump cuts. They're not cuts at all. They're just, we stopped the camera and started the camera back up again. That's how that worked.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I was trying to type that to him. I just think it would have been better versed by you. That's why I asked.
Yeah, no problem. So I want to keep going back up a little bit here. Okay, does Kading have, by the way, does Kading have any leverage over? No, Kading doesn't have any leverage on me at all. Okay, in fact, I won't say it's the other way around, but Greg Kading has absolutely nothing to hold over my head about anything. Go ahead.
No, I'll say something differently. I've been real nice to Greg Kading. I've been really, really fucking nice because I don't want my channel to go off topic. This is about Tupac. But when RJ said the other way around, look, I don't agree with him. He doesn't agree with me, and I'm just speaking personally. But I've played very, very nice on my YouTube, and I don't want to make this the anti-Greg Kading channel or the Greg Kading channel.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, Jeff Keehan's right. There are people getting murdered over alleged biting. Today's rap is acceptable to have ghostwriters. It absolutely, you're 100% correct. It is. And back in those days, sampling was still being, legal. It was still legal to sample things. So, that was a kind of a Wild West area right there. But again, in the thug mentality, it's easy to steal things.
So there's a bit of a delay, RJ. Sorry. The DOC wrote Doggy Style, guys.
Yeah.
The DOC wrote part of The Chronic. So, I mean, there's a lot of fuckery that goes around in the studio. I don't think it's uncommon.
Well, okay, Eric Valentine, welcome to the show. Hey guys, Anton Beatty's on other sites about the JFK assassination, lying his ass off. He seems to be a disinformation scumbag. Don't disagree with you on a lot of that. Disinformation is what he likes to do. He's very strongly opinionated in his beliefs about things, and when he believes something, he will, or at least did, he doesn't, I don't think he does it anymore, but he will do whatever or say whatever is necessary to try to win the argument. And, that's why he gets the reputation that he does. But Eric, welcome to the show.
He doesn't hold his word very well. I'm asking him publicly, because I know he still watches YouTube, to release the rest of the debate between me and Greg Kading.
Let's see here. I can't speak to the whole boo time thing and Knight having a beef and Knight beating up. Again, I'm not a big Suge Knight apologist, guys. I'm not really into Suge Knight's current murder trial and why he's being tried for murder. I'm really not big into that. I understand the details of it, and you go to Tupac187.blogspot.com. I think I wrote an entire page about, what I saw in the videotape, about what it appeared to be on the video as far as whether or not Suge Knight was a victim in the shooting there. I don't know about all the beef. Suge Knight's had beefs with everybody. I mean, he's had some sort of tussle, some sort of altercation, some sort of beef with everybody in that era and even now. So, is it possible? Sure it is. But, I don't track it because, again, I believe that what they're doing to Suge right now is not good. It's not correct. It's wrong. But I don't get into the details of it because I just frankly don't care. You had a question, Jess? Your mic's off.
Of course it is. I was just thanking Eric. Eric gave us a positive compliment, and I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody on here. I would ask you to go check out the 313 live show and Controversy Radio, because they have an interview with me and RJ and a project they've been working on very hard. So if you check out those channels for me, I'd appreciate it. I'll let RJ kind of take the floor and take a couple of your questions.
Let's see here. I got to scroll back up. YouTube wants to keep me jumping back down. Diedrich Tatum, welcome to the show, Diedrich Tatum. Question is, did Frank Alexander cheat on his wife? The answer to that question is complicated. It's not a straightforward question. It would appear that he did. However, if that statement is made in any way, shape, or form to endorse any of the bullshit that Tanique has put out about Greg Kading's sister having something going on with Frank and that he was cheating on his wife with Greg Kading's sister, that is patently untrue. Now, I do know that Frank went out to travel and he was out and about, and there were some pictures that would make it look as if he was intimate with females, that he was, but again, you got your arm around somebody. Does that mean that you were having an affair with them? No. If you're lounging around with somebody, does it mean you're having an affair with them? No. So again, there's no proof that he was having an affair on his wife at all. There's, certainly it could be anybody's guess about that. Was he having an affair on his wife? I know what he told me, and what did he tell me? To quote Man, I'll never tell. Okay? I don't think it's anybody's fucking business, to be perfectly honest with you.
I said he went on a European pussy tour, and that's based on what people who knew Frank told me, not from Frank.
Right. So, again, like I said, could it be possible? Sure. Yeah, sure. Could it be possible? Yes. Was I there? No.
But I will say unequivocally, without a doubt, right around the time of Frank's death, RJ can confirm this. We had three-way calls all the time concerning Greg Kagan. I hope I'm not telling something I shouldn't, RJ. But we would have three-way calls when some shit would hit the internet. And trust me, I think that if something was going on, that he would be the one to tell us then. Well, guess what I'm doing? So I never heard anything like that from Frank concerning anybody related to Greg Kading. And that's what I have to say about it.
Oh, say that again. I was reading a comment. What? I'm sorry. What about Greg Kading?
Right before his death, we were doing three-way calls about, Machiavelli board stuff, and it's when the internal affairs report leaked. And we were talking to Frank about Greg Kading, and I said that Frank
hated Greg Kading.
Yeah, he did, but that's the point.
Frank said that Greg Kading was sucking Reggie's dick.
Yeah,
I mean, that's almost a verbatim quote. I think I even have that in an email from Frank.
Yes, and what I'm saying is, if he wanted to damage Greg Kading with what people are alleging is an affair, I'm pretty sure he would have told us that, hey, I'm sleeping with Greg Kading's sister, if he was at the time. But he never said that.
Listen, he was friends with Greg Kading's sister back in 1998. I was friends with Greg Kading's sister back in 1998. Does that mean I was having an affair with her? No. But Frank was single. I was single. Nice. Frank was single. I was single. You know, if anybody wanted to toss it up, they could toss it up.
I've
There's no
got
law
singles.
against that. You know, yeah, I got some money, but you know, but again, they were friends. They were friends. They went to the gym. They worked out together. You know, whether or not it was anything more than that is their business, not my business. And again, to make insinuations and make allegations, you know, based on certain things and pictures and everything like that, you know, you have your opinion. I've got my opinion. We all, you know what we know, but there's certainly no law against it if it was true. But that was back in 1998. It was not in 2013 when Frank Alexander passed away. Period. Kathy's married to another dude. She's living in Las Vegas. You know, it's a whole different situation there. And I'm sorry that some idiot, whoever put that out, ever put that out. It was the most reckless and irresponsible thing that somebody could have put out, and I think it just put egg on everybody's face. Period.
Yeah, and the families are kind of off topic. This guy Roger Hunt, he's asked several questions. Welcome to the show, Roger. He asked, and I want your take on this too. Now, Jimmy Iovine has recently came out and said that Interscope Records actually bailed out Tupac. Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I mean, okay. So Jimmy Iovine's take on things is that Interscope bailed Tupac out. Well, technically that might be true. However, because Interscope wrote the check, okay, for part of it, not all of it, part of it. But the reason that Interscope wrote the check was because the money that they were using was Tupac's royalties. It was money that Tupac had already earned but had not been paid yet, and Interscope wrote the check for that. So now, from Jimmy Iovine's particular perspective, Interscope saved the day because, again, Tupac can't access that money without the distributor saying it's okay. So basically, to me, that's just like him trying to grab the glory, and I think it's insulting because it's actually not an accurate reflection of the truth. That's what happened. But from a technically correct perspective, it is true that Interscope Records wrote the check that paid for that part of the bail. Does that mean that Interscope bailed him out? No, Tupac bailed himself out. But Interscope was the one who wrote the check. So I just think it's kind of it's one of those situations where, yes, technically you're correct, but everybody knows a little bit better, and you know, it just shows that people just don't want to acknowledge the truth.
And I spoke to AJ Benza, and he was real close to the situation. I've heard this before from inside sources, that even Madonna was trying to help financially with that bail. So for Jimmy Iovine to take complete credit for it, especially with the royalty money that RJ brought up, I think is kind of a farce.
Hey, by the way, Roger Hunt, you're from Columbus, Ohio. Good on you. Greetings to Columbus,
Go
Ohio.
Buckeyes.
I know. Listen, I love Columbus, Ohio. My wife's parents actually live just north of Columbus, Ohio. I've been to Columbus, Ohio many times, and I like Columbus. I dig it. So love out there at Columbus, Ohio. There's times I still wish I was in Cincinnati myself.
Ray Will, I'd like to say, where did the rest of the bail money technically come from? If you look at Tupac's prison contract, the first page of that contract is a management deal with Suge Knight. Now, unless I'm mistaken, RJ, when he signed over management rights to Suge Knight, did that not allow Suge Knight to access his royalties?
He didn't sign his rights over to Suge Knight. He signed his rights over to David Kenner.
David Kenner, yes.
He made David Kenner his power of attorney, and power of attorney means you have access to everything. You can make everything happen on behalf of somebody else. He gave access to his money, and even in the agreement, there's a stipulation that money was going to be immediately used and taken to pay for certain things. So it wasn't like Tupac just said, "Yeah, you can deal with my shit," and then just forgot about it. There was actually in the agreement itself certain things that money was going to be spent immediately on, and it was the next day that David Kenner did have access to Tupac's money and actually did start making withdrawals from the royalty accounts and getting his money. So the answer to that question is that yes, David Kenner had access to Tupac's money.
Rockstar says, "What money disputes? Do you have video of Pac complaining about money? No, just hearsay. Somebody never heard Pac say shit, but good shit about Suge." I interviewed Lance Pierre, and Lance Pierre said the most memorable quote I've ever heard anybody say, that when Tupac was in Studio B, he got on the phone and he was mad about it, and he said that Snoop was corny, Rage has been working on an album that's not coming out for years, that he was paying for all that shit, and he was even paying Nate Dogg's child support, and he wanted to be in Studio A. There's several different little tidbits and sources. RJ, you've talked to didn't Gloria Cox say that Tupac was unhappy with money situations at Death Row?
Oh, listen, Yasmin Fula said that Tupac was unhappy with the money situation there. Glow Cox said Tupac was unhappy with the money situation there. Tracy Robinson said that, and these are all people that knew him and had personal first-hand knowledge of this. They said that he was unhappy with the money situation. Michael Moore, the bodyguard, said that he confronted Pac confronted Suge about the money situation. Even people like what's her name? Lena Sunday had a conversation with Tupac where Tupac was going to go to Las Vegas, and he told her, "Hey, I'm going to go to Vegas to watch the fight." She goes, "Stay home and watch the fight like the rest of us." He said, "No, I'm going to go and try to squash the beef with Suge over the money." That was directly relating to the events in New York that Michael Moore talked about. So Lena Sunday independently corroborated that conversation, that it had happened, that Tupac said, I'm off death row, I'm done, whatever the money situation was, keep it. But she confirmed it, that he told her that he had to go fix the situation with Suge, and that Suge was going to try to squash it. It was his words, the problem about the money situation. So, I mean, there's a half a dozen people who talk about Tupac not being happy with the money situation. I mean, it's no secret. Everybody knew it.
And I need Rockstar especially to understand that when Tupac said, "I'm paying for all this," he wasn't talking about All Eyes on Me royalties. Me Against the World was a #1 selling album. There was a lot of royalties for Me Against the World, but with that, and Tupac's attitude from Lance Pierre's perspective was, at the time, he had the #1 album, being All Eyes on Me, following a #1 album. So I'm speculating, but in Tupac's mind, that was his money.
Well, there's more to it than that, though. You got to understand something. When somebody gets elevated, when All Eyes on Me went bonkers, okay, on the charts,
and it was $30 when it came out. That was unheard of in '96
because it was a double album. What you got to understand is, when any artist, I don't care who it is, Journey, any artist at all, Journey had done like 6 albums before they actually hit it. But you know what happened to those other 6 albums that came before it? Once they hit it, people woke up and liked them and understood who they were, and they liked them. There was a ripple effect that went backwards, and all of the older catalogs started shooting through the roof and started selling millions of copies because people wanted to know what happened before that money hit. So you've got albums that have been in the can for years, not just All Eyes on Me, but Trapped, and I mean all the other ones that he had done, Me Against the World, I should say, other albums that he had done in earlier years that skyrocketed in popularity just because All Eyes on Me took off. So this is something people don't talk about. It's not just about the royalties from All Eyes on Me. It was that when he took off, and he just took off like a rocket, all of the other albums that he had before saw sales increases and royalties from those as well. So it was not just a linear effect. It was actually a quantitative effect on how his royalties started to come in.
He was giving people like Spice One gold records just off the features that he was doing when he blew up. So people that had Tupac featured on their album were selling more records when Tupac blowed up.
Right. All right. So let's roll down here. What's Pac's ex-wife up to these days? We did an interview with her not too long ago. By the way, Roger, she's doing interviews. That's what she's up to. I don't know. What do I know? Check this out. Roger, get a copy of Tupac 187. It literally gives you almost to the minute blow up of everything that happened that night, and then what happened immediately following the shooting for the next week or two. It gives is pretty much almost like a play-by-play about what happened. So it's worth the $10 or whatever you're going to spend on a copy of it to get to it. That's going to be better than me going over these things, 100 times.
Damn it, RJ, you better address Harry O. I see
What about
so
Harry O?
many. I don't know. There's so many Harry O comments. Harry O screwed him over. What I heard about Harry.
I'm trying to get an interview with Harry O right now. Actually, I'm working on it. I'm trying to
Okay,
get an interview.
Then I won't say anything about.
I'm not
Harry
going to say
O.
anything either until I have an interview with him. Okay. So, RJ Nick Broomfield said, "What does he think now? Did he even get as far as you guys pertain to the investigation?" No. Nick Broomfield did a bit. It was a moment in time shot. It was looked at. He kind of made a parody, a mockery of the whole thing, and he trotted off to do another movie later on. He's had zero input or zero take or contribution to anything since then. Let's see here. Let's see here. Why are you guys sitting on so much unreleased stuff? Luke, great question, Luke Henderson. Again, if I didn't shout your name out, say thank you to Sarah. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Okay, so here's the thing. We have vaults of material, unreleased interviews, all that. There are 3 or 4 different reasons. I can give you probably the top 3 reasons why we don't release things. Number 1, because we couldn't have come to a specific agreement for how the interview was going to be used and in what context. Number 2, that maybe the releases were weaker than others. Number 2, it never made one of the movies because it just, what the person had to say by the time we got done interviewing them really didn't have much to do with what we were talking about in the movies. And I don't do interviews where I have a specific series of questions. I try to angle for things that I like to talk about, but I let people talk pretty freely about what they want to talk about, and I try to guide the conversation. I don't just sit down with a list of questions and ask them.
When you're not telling Frank Alexander what to say.
Well, exactly, when I'm not actually telling them what to say. So there you go. True. Thank you for that. But I would I would find that there would be interviews that would go on.
That threw you off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did. That there were interviews that went on that the person that did the interview just had absolutely really nothing of any relevance to what we were doing in the movie, and so you cut that stuff out. So we have tons of unreleased stuff, and at some point we'll start putting that out there.
I wanted to address a Chris Carr film. RJ Jmix. Scarface said to stop supporting Tupac's work commercially because his blood family sees no money. Your thoughts? I will only say this. I would never call for a Tupac boycott because I love Tupac. I'm a fan of Tupac's. But I stopped supporting them commercially after they put out 3 bad albums. So Scarface knew Pac, and I much respect to Scarface and Houston and all that. But I would never call for a Tupac boycott because at the end of the day, Afeni made those decisions, and I would, if I have to pick a side, I'm gonna pick Tupac's mom and Tupac's side. There's a reason that she set it up the way she did, and it was hers to do so with what she pleased.
Okay. Great comment. Rockstar said, so if Pac felt cheated, why did he ride on Orlando over the death row chain? Well, that's what I was saying. Rockstar, you got to go watch Battle for Compton, or you got to read 187. I say this on every broadcast. I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad you're asking the questions. It's difficult for us in a very short period of time to go back over the things that we talk about in the movies, especially if they're pretty basic. In the movie we talk about, first off, there was no death row chain. There was no incident. There was no Lakewood Mall. It was a bunch of stuff that was made up. Even Tim Brennan of the Compton PD said that he claimed that there was a fight, but then he turned around and said that the chain was never stolen. So, the reason that we believe that Tupac got in the fight with Orlando Anderson is because they wanted to violate and revoke his bail so that they could hold it over his head and keep him in line. And that was the only reason there was any fight with Orlando Anderson at all. See here.
Katie, RJ got to speak to Afeni. Katie, it's the newest comment. She said, "Did y'all ever have a chance to speak to Queen Shakur?" And I'm assuming she means Afeni. You spoke to Afeni, right?
Several times. Yeah, several times.
I'm name dropping for
on the
you.
phone, all that. and in person. I mean, you know, the last time I saw Feeney was at Tupac Shakur's birthday celebration in Atlanta. This was I want to say 2010.
2011, wasn't it?
Was it 2011? Yeah, it was.
Yep.
2011 was the last time that I saw her, and at the birthday celebration, and you know, we hugged, and she signed my Tupac assassination poster for me at that time because, again, you know, we were given the Shakur Foundation copies of our movie to put out on their stands in their merchandise shop. Okay,
For
so
free.
when they said. Yeah, but well, no, they sold them. No, I gave them to them
Yeah,
for free, but
you
they
gave
sold them.
You gave the estate DVDs of your movie to sell and keep the profits from.
Right, absolutely, and boxes of them, and they did. And so think about this for a minute. For all these people, all these idiots that sit there and say, "Well, the estate didn't like what you were doing," or "How do we know that?" They didn't agree with that. But bullshit. Okay, I mean, anecdotally speaking and otherwise bullshit. They were selling my movie at their gift shop at the Shakur Foundation. Okay, doesn't need to say too much more than that. If they didn't agree with the politics of the movie, they wouldn't be selling it out of their own gift shop. Okay, I mean, that's kind of says it all right there. So that's that. Yeah, but to answer your question, Katie, absolutely.
I'm
We had a
glad
great
you said that,
relationship.
though. I'm glad you said that.
No, listen, we had a positive and great relationship with Afeni and with Glow when we did Tupac Assassination, Conspiracy or Revenge, the first one. We sought her approval on it. We got her approval on it. We vetted it with her attorneys. We sat and watched the movie with their attorneys eating Chinese food in New York, in their attorney offices in New York. I flew out there especially for doing that. When Part 2 came out, we shot part of Part 2 at the Shakur Foundation. We literally shot it on the grounds of the foundation. We got together with them. The family showed up when we screened the Part 1 in Atlanta later on at the Spaghetti Junction Film Festival. The family was out there for us. There was many conversations with the family, and there wasn't anything that we were doing with the assassination movies that Afeni didn't know about. Period. I can say that with absolute clarity. There wasn't anything we weren't doing. The only thing that Afeni had an issue with us is if we used his music without paying for it. That's it. That was all she said, and it wasn't even because she had anything to do with it. She just knew that there were going to be other people that are going to be really pissed off, like Universal Music Group and other people like that, that we would have to pay them, and we weren't budget-wise, didn't have the music budget to pay for any music. So she said, better not, just don't use it, and that way you can't get sued. That was it.
Why does Tom Wally get such a bad rap? Didn't Afeni, didn't she trust Tom?
Well, Tom Wally's been around since the beginning of Tupac's career. Tom Wally was the Tom in Tommy Boy Records. It was Digital Underground and all that. Adrian Gregory and Tom Wally still have a fantastic relationship. And it's business, but at the end of the day, they still have a good relationship. Now, Tom Wally has known Afeni for all of Tupac's career. Good, bad, and ugly. Times when Afeni's around, time when she wasn't around, all that. Tom Wally gave him his break. And again, Afeni is not in the music industry. She's not a person who understands music contracts. She doesn't understand how distribution works. She doesn't want to understand any of that. She just wants to make money. And so you can hire attorneys, and hiring Fishbein and people like that was a great idea. But Afeni didn't necessarily have the music. Those attorneys weren't music attorneys. They were more like general counsel, civil rights attorneys, like the attorney in New York, for example, that was her attorney for the longest time. He was more of a civil rights attorney. He did know some contract law and general principles of law and all that, and he wasn't afraid to sue people in that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they weren't really music industry people. And do you have to have an attorney to do everything for you? No. That's why celebrities have managers, and a lot of managers aren't attorneys. They have agents. Those agents aren't attorneys a lot of times. Some are, but most aren't. So you have a manager who understands the business itself, and that's what Tom Wally's function was. He and remains, is that he is basically managing the estate's catalogs, and as such, he was doing it for 2 years before she died, and she was just handed it off to him and trusted him to do it. So the fact that he's doing it now, that's nothing surprising and nothing unusual. You know, what he's trying to do right now is he's trying to clean up some of the mess that happened many years ago regarding leaked demos, people using Tupac's likeness and image, and going after the Kardashians for making T-shirts of Tupac's image. I mean, you know, that's you know, recommendable. Like I commend him on doing that. You know, somebody's got to, and just because, you know, he does, it doesn't make him a bad guy. You know, I don't know him personally, but you know, from everything I've heard from Matron, from everything, I mean, he's tough, but he's a fair dude and he's a good dude. So I cut him some slack.
And I wanted to address Chris one more time. Are Tupac's blood relatives reaping any benefit? I'm gonna say this is my opinion. This is what I've been told. That I don't know if they directly receive royalties from album sales, but when I asked a prominent individual about his sister Setua, fucking Jesus. But when I asked about Set, I was told that they're not exactly broke. So whatever that deal is, to be honest with you, Chris, thanks for coming on the show, but it's really not my business. I just know that they're not broke. If that
Right,
helps.
and you know, and again, when you talk about benefits of, you know, or making any money off of Tupac, you know, if you're Tupac's relative and you're not making money off of Tupac, I would think there would be something wrong with that. I mean, Gloria Cox said that those words came out of Tupac's mouth. I'm a commodity. Use me. You can't make a T-shirt. If Tupac's family wanted to go start making T-shirts or cut a deal for a biopic or whatever the case might be, are they getting paid for that? Sure. I mean, you know, is William Lassane hurting for money when he goes and does an interview for A&E or does something else, or any one of them? You know, they get paid for those interviews. So are they benefiting financially from Tupac? Sure, because who would be wanting to interview them if they weren't relatives of Tupac? Okay, how many interviews do you think they'd get? None. So, you know, so any benefit that they would have definitely comes from the fact that they are.
Well, and shout out to Mo Preem, who is a very down-to-earth dude, has always granted me interviews time and time again. But, you know, shout out to Mo Preem. Mo Preem's out there doing it big too, guys. So I think Tupac's family are doing all right. And no shot at Mo Preem, but Mo Preem's out there doing big things.
So, okay, so, and, you know, and I think that, you know, we're kind of running out of time here. So I'm actually going to answer one question that I got thrown, and I'm surprised at it, but I think it's time we talked about it. Let's talk about it, Jesse. You know, you and I have talked about this for a long time. The question says, RJ, when do you want to retire? That's a great question. I hope it wasn't meant sarcastically, and you can ping back, JM, and let me know if it was.
Hard to tell with that guy.
Yeah, I know. The guy that calls me ogre, and, you know, I know. It's okay. But I like him. And at the end of the day, you've been a great soldier, dude. You've always been there for us. So, I mean, I might as well make it official, okay? Basically, in terms of my involvement in doing the movies and doing books or doing anything like that, I'm looking at retiring out of this part of the business here and being done kind of with the whole Tupac thing right around first quarter of next year. I originally talked to Jesse about it, said that I was going to be out of it in December, although I feel like there's a lot of value to being around when the Russell Poole movie comes out from there. You know, in that time, though, I'm going to be working with Jesse. I'm going to be working with other people that I believe will you know, carry on the work that I've done to this point. But, you know, everybody gets to a point where they can take the torch and they can only run it so far. And being frank with everybody, you know, when we put out a video that Greg Kading put out of the Pattons being interviewed, and they say that they had nothing to do with the murder of Tupac Shakur, and I hire a person whose entire career in business and 1,000 television show interviews puts her national reputation at stake by her professional opinion, and she wrote the book on it, that these guys are lying about not being involved with Tupac's murder, I really don't know what more there is to say or what more there is to prove. I mean, if you know, I say I didn't do it and I'm on a lie detector, and I say I didn't do it and the lie detector says I'm lying about it, I mean, it's pretty much over at that point. I'm not a police officer. I haven't been a police officer like that. I've never been, doing big investigations for police departments or anything like that. I'm a documentary filmmaker who's gone out and done 3 movies about a subject. I think we've covered it pretty well. And I actually believe that Tupac assassination, Battle for Compton is the mic drop. I really believe that we put it all out there, that we believe we got proof of that. The Patton video about them lying about their involvement, I think, cemented it. Other information that we received cemented it. And I just don't think that there's much more that I can give to the investigation than that. It's going to be up to somebody else to take up those leads, to pursue those leads, to get out there in front of it. And it's time for me to, after 10 years or almost 12 years now of doing it, for me to kind of step back and say, I'm available as a resource, but I'm not going to be the guy out in front fighting the fight anymore. So to answer your question about that, that's what that's the announcement. The announcement is that I will be kind of retiring from the Tupac DVDs and movie business in the first quarter of next year. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
And same with the YouTube channel, guys. There's only so far you can take a channel. I implore everybody to, get it while you can, because there's a couple more interviews I'm wrapping up, and then it's on to greener pastures. Got some literary stuff going on, and just going to take some different avenues. So we do enjoy every single person that comes here, and I hope that these Sundays with RJ gives you guys an opportunity to try to clarify any misconceptions you may have or questions about the movies or even his book. I highly recommend 187. It's a masterpiece. It mentions the greatest YouTuber that I've ever known, which is myself. And just for that, I think it should be in the Library of Congress, and you should read it. Buy it. Show my name.
Check this out.
To your
and
girlfriend.
Ray, actually,
Hey,
next
why
week
not?
we will talk about Yasmin. Thank you, Jesse.
I'll give a brief rundown of the Yasmin thing. I know RJ.
No, we're going to talk about it next week. We'll just talk about it next week. We will discuss it, but I want to actually put some serious time into it because I want to get a little bit more information from Siddharth, some other people first.
That's fair enough. Well,
Is that okay with you?
Yeah. With that being said, I appreciate your time, RJ, and we'll see you next Sunday.
Yep, absolutely. And by the way, and I will say one last thing too. Guys, just because I'm saying I'm going to be out of it by the first quarter of the year, we got a lot of stuff we're putting out between now and then. There's a whole lot of shit we're going to stir up between now and then. And no, I am not going out with a whimper. No way. We're going out with a bang. So just stay tuned for that because it's going to be a hell of a ride, and I would never make anything but a dramatic exit. So just let you know. Okay. Thanks for the comments, guys.
Thank you, RJ.
See you, bud.
See you next Sunday.
This is a Jmix exclusive.
What up with Shut Up?